Hi again, gardening friends. Just wanted to follow up on a couple things we talked about last week at Lisa's garden, Lisa Gardens here. In terms of pruning, I mentioned how there's a formality in my garden with many clipped items like boxwoods and rosemary that can be shaped into, geometric forms. And so I did go ahead and start on some of that pruning here for the season. Just wanted to point that out to you. So I have quite a number of balls here, and I want to show you how I did prune those. But first I want to connect that to a principle of garden design that is important for any size of garden, really, particularly a middle-sized garden like this, and that is creating cohesion. We want the garden to be aesthetically pleasing. We want it to feel relaxing and connected and like it makes sense and it's not chaotic or haphazard. And what helps create cohesion is when we have some rhythm and repetition throughout the garden. And that is through design elements. It can be specifically through certain shapes or particular plants that you repeat. They don't have to be the same plants, but they can give a similar visual effect. So that leads us to some of this clipping that I did. Rhythm and repetition, in one way that I've enhanced that in this garden, is using clipped balls, and there's quite a number actually of different plants that you can do pruning on and create geometric shapes like that. Yew in England, the YEWU plant is very famous. That those can last for 100 years or more and make great shapes. But here in the States, I think probably the most popular plant that's used for topiary or clipping in shapes in the garden is boxwood. And I do have quite a number of boxwoods, as I pointed out last time, like these cones here. Also, here's a little ball. I have quite a few balls throughout the garden that I keep shaped and sculpted, and they don't actually take that much work. This is one that I just did some clipping on yesterday. It's fairly small, and of course I did buy it in a very small form, and it's slowly growing, and it's much less expensive that way to grow it on your own and take care of it to when it gets to be a much bigger, more dramatic presence in the garden. And some other balls I have in a rhythm and repetition fashion here would be these rosemary. Now in zone 10, rosemary is just a perfect plant. It's known for being drought friendly. It's comes originally from the Mediterranean region, which we are kind of semi-Mediterranean slash almost desert-like here in Southern California. And so these rosemaries are wonderful, of course, for cooking, but also for just creating very pleasing shapes like these spherical forms here. You can see one there, one there. I've got a little parallelism, a little, one on each side, and then repeating in other areas here as you go down the way. And let's see, there's some other boxwood balls here. I haven't done my pruning on those yet recently, but that you can see there how they create that, that pretty spherical form. And just a side note, there's cute little white, they're called bacopa flowers, and those do really well during the cold period of the season here, or cooler period, I should say. So in the spring, they'll eventually kind of die back when the intense heat of the summer comes. But those trail very beautifully from boxwood in a planter there. As far as other repetition, I've got many elements that I use that with, and that would be the roses. I showed you the large rose beds up front last time, but also these climbing iceberg roses. And then I've got quite a number of rose bushes that are just interspersed throughout the garden where they're mixed in with other plants. As far as rhythm and repetition, one of my favorites in this garden is the use of olive trees. Now, my garden is fairly compact. I don't have a lot of space. I wouldn't have much success with full-size olive trees. They can be maintained in a pot and keeping them fairly small, but what I've chosen to do is use a couple varieties that are dwarf. One is called Bonita, which of course in Spanish means pretty. These taller ones here are Bonita olive bushes. This one, and this one. And so again, you can see the repetition effect. I also have one over here along the pillar and another one at the edge of the house there. And also in the front, that repetition is carried through with another variety of olive tree, dwarf olive tree, and actually it's a bush. They're called little olives, and they actually just grow, about maybe 3 feet high. And I've got them clipped into kind of, I guess, gumdrop shaped kind of ball effect, more of a gumdrop shape. And I really enjoy those. They're terrific for this Mediterranean zone 10, very intense heat kind of area. I've also got a couple up on the deck, and they do really well, even though the heat in the summer just gets quite intense up there. They do just fine. I want to point out a couple more things about bulbs that have worked well for me, and that is a delightful, adorable little bulb called snowdrops. They're very, very popular in England, and I wasn't sure how well they do, but I have them in this cooler, shadier area, and they've just come up like clockwork each spring, actually late winter. And so these are a bit on their tail end. The blooms aren't at their height right now, but they're just adorable little flowers. There's loads of different kinds of snowdrops, but they're very delicate white little cups or even umbrella looking shapes with little green dots around them, and they're just the sweetest, and they do naturalize over time. So after a couple years, I already do have, I'd say, about twice as many as what I started with, which was just about 5 of them. Yes, and so I wanted to point those out, as well as another super popular bulb type flower, and that is agapanthus. Here in Southern California, you see them everywhere, and they are just tough as nails. I mean, the heat just doesn't faze them, and they come back and come back. Matter of fact, after 2 or 3 years, what you need to do is divide them, and I find them on clearance. They're everywhere, but they're beautiful. I buy them for a few dollars on clearance, even though originally they're $20. But buying one for $3 on clearance and then separating it out, actually before I plant it, into 4 different plants. So you can see how economical they are. But I'll show you, here's a couple. They don't bloom till later in the summer, but they will be beautiful little spires with big, beautiful purple floriferous balls that look like a giant version of what you see there, which is an African lily. Okay, folks, that's it for today, and it's been great to again share a little fun in the garden here with you today. Bye now.